Hello, hello, and welcome to our roundtable today. Annie and I have gotten together to do this podcast for you, this roundtable discussion together about AI, authenticity, and the apocalypse. And we're talking about this today because, as you all know, the club is a feminine incubation space. And I believe that really what's happening right now, whether you call it your spiritual awakening, your reinvention, your midlife crisis, what it is it's the awakening feminine. It's the parts of ourself that has to be in emotional resonance, that has to feel passion and fulfillment, that has to feel nurtured, that has to feel valued, that has to feel like they get to do the thing they love doing every single day. When this part inside of ourself awakens, you can't unsee it and you can't go back. And so who here can resonate with having that moment, that breakdown moment, when you see it all? It's like waking up from a dream and all of a sudden everything in your life changes and you lose all motivation and you don't want to go back to work and all your relationships feel wrong. And then that triggers apocalypse in your own life, right? If you think about the mini apocalypse that this creates in your entire world, your entire life implodes, right? And this is my own story. 4 years ago, I got a divorce. I lost businesses. I lost so many things. And then after that, I just could not do my old life the same. It's just could not do it, right? And I had to rebuild my life. Every single step was new, completely new. And it's taken me 4 years to get here today to present the club. And, the club really is the space that I didn't have back then. And I know if I'd had this kind of space, right, this feminine incubation, this support space, this place where we can have these conversations where we realize it is way more normal than we think and we're actually all going through it, then I believe we can turn this awakening feminine not into an apocalypse, but into a new world era. And that's why I really wanted to talk about this today, because in a way, how I see AI, it's our logic delulu, right? We've had the suppressed feminine for so long. How many women, or even people who are feminine dominant, who don't believe in themselves, who have suppressed their decision making, who get lost in the decisions and believing they know where they're going and that what they're doing is correct for them, right? We're so disconnected from this. And so when we activate this is how we get to actually take more intentional steps. So I just want to share my screen a little bit to talk about this, because also there are many modalities that predict a complete apocalypse in 2027. So we're getting to this time where it's getting a lot closer and people are kind of starting to freak out a little bit. And so that's why I also want to talk about it. So as I said, right, the club is this feminine incubation space where I believe we can create a new world order instead of an apocalypse. And so I want to talk about this, right? Because the reason we do these kind of discussions, the reason why we're meeting today is to have conversation, to collaborate our knowledge, to co-lead these discussions and create community where this incubation can happen. And so this is a little bit about what I do, right? I'm an intuitive storyteller. I'm a conversation starter. I'm a community builder. I'm a pattern disruptor. And this is how I'm also using my feminine gifts to try and create a different order. And I have the cross of the 4 ways, right? And this is about creating stability and security and sensing what communities need and what the collective needs or what individuals need to get there. And so when I look at what I envision as a feminine future, I see it as shifting into co-leadership, not hierarchy, right? Valuing a diversity of voices and the feminine and the masculine skills as equal, creating more intentional interaction, not noise, creating win-win community. The world, the systems that are going to crash are the ones where a few win and a lot lose, right? The hierarchical systems are what are crashing right now. The patriarchal systems are crashing, right? So this is how I believe the feminine is the activator of the apocalypse, or rather the new world order. So how we see some of these 2027 predictions, just to kick off this discussion today with Annie, is in 2027, human design predicts that a superior human species is going to be born. And actually what's interesting is they are described as kind of almost being completely unable, or in a way kind of like severe autism. And so that is one way that they've been described, but their intellectual power will be so high that they will be more intellectual than the human race. And because they need so few resources, they'll be able to survive without everything that we need to survive. They're not going to be very mobile. Human design also predicts that there will be the collective trust in systems is going to fall, right? So these big major corporate systems, everyone's going to lose trust in them. And we're shifting into a line 6 era. Right now, we've been in the cross of planning, we've been in a line 1 research and investigation era. And we see this, right? We have very structured plans and systems and routines and everything that created stability and security for the world. But now we're shifting into an era of, well, how does this impact me? And more self-led directives and more authentic, well, that doesn't work for me, or this does work for me, or I want this, or I don't want that. And we're shifting from the cross of planning into the sleeping phoenix. Now, the sleeping phoenix is very driven by emotional and energetic waves. It moves a lot, right? And right now we actually have a taste of this energy in the south and north nodes, right? So if you have been feeling a little bit emotional waves and highs and depressive lows, and really feeling this kind of like quick desire to move and do things suddenly and then not want to do anything at all, right? This is really giving us a little taste of what this sleeping phoenix energy is going to be like. And so these are how I also describe the feminine, right? Being so driven by our emotional waves and our energetic passions and our desire to create something because it feels good, and also acting in the moment because we feel the energy, right? So if you've been feeling this is because you could be tasting a little bit of what's to come. And so to me, these are all of these feminine energies. We're really moving into feminine emotions and way of listening to the body. These body responses are going to get so much stronger that you're not going to be able to ignore them. So this is going to really create this breakdown of things. It has also been predicted that AI intelligence is going to succeed human capacity and will become self-directed. This has been predicted in 2027. And certain Christian groups have also predicted, based on a recalculation of the Bible, that it will be the end of the biblical tribulation era. It might mean the return, or, something like that as well. And some say alien knowledge is going to be revealed by the government, and that it's actually been planned for 2027. Now, there are so many theories out there. So that's why I wanted to start this discussion and to really talk about, well, what is actually happening, right? We have just gone in the last 1 or 2 years through one of the most major transitions with AI coming in, that it is triggering so much change, right? So regardless of these predictions, my prediction is, will the feminine get us there first? Right? Because this is the part that all of these things are awakening. Like I said, AI is like our Delulu logic partner. It's like, yes, you can do it. And then it gives you the plan. Here's the 5 steps to go and do it. Right? So AI is activating these feminine gifts and this feminine power and, creating self-led directives. Right? And like I said, the feminine part of ourself, it's needing resonance with our emotional well-being, our passion and fulfillment, our creative expression, freedom, nurture, intuitive guidance. If you have been feeling these things waking up, this is because the energy, the backline energy is changing. Or is it, right? Is it just that society is changing? I don't really like to go into too much into believing any one thing. I'll wait until it happens, right? But what we do know that is true is that we can no longer bypass this energy. We can no longer bypass our emotions and bypass the energy and just be like, no, I'm going to discipline myself harder. And that is why I say maybe the feminine, the awakening feminine, is what is going to lead us into this apocalypse. And so the feminine also taps into authenticity, right? And so what is the common feminine factor behind AI, authenticity, and the apocalypse, right? As I said, AI enables and builds masculine structures very fast, right? So you can have any feminine idea, any feminine innovation, and AI will help you create it very, very quickly, or help you find the organization, right? So this is how I use AI. I let my feminine create, but then I go and I'm like, AI, okay, build, like, tell me how to build this, right? Make it fast. Tell me how to do the tech stuff. Tell me the things I don't know, right? So this is how I see that AI activates our feminine ideas. Then authenticity becomes our new currency, right? The thing that AI can't do is original thought, right? It's regurgitated thought. Only you can come up with authentic ideas, or your unique genetic makeup has the power to activate other people in different way, right? Nobody can copy your genetic makeup. That is the only thing that AI cannot copy, right? So this authenticity in the age of the AI era is really going to become our new currency. So we're really going to see again, right, this major change in systems. How are we going to build systems that enable the currency of authenticity, right? This can completely change the way that we build community, that we build companies. And then the apocalypse then becomes the breakdown of any rigid system that doesn't fit, right? This authentic expression, these quick ways of building new ideas and systems. And this is what I believe is the apocalypse. I do not believe that we are going to go through some major, end of world, everything's burning, nothing left kind of systems. I believe if we ride the wave, if we let the feminine lead, if we start actually working on this now, it just becomes a shift into feminine-led initiatives that are supported and built by masculine structures, where more people are feeling valued, and this is actually was really the basis of what I built the club to be. I thought, well, how do we create a community where everyone actually gets to contribute what they want to contribute, what they do best, the point of views and the perspective from their unique genetic makeup, the only story and original story that they can tell, right? What happens when we enable everybody to have a free flow of ideas and shared knowledge, that everybody feels valued, seen, and heard? What do we create when we do that, right? So even for me, all of this was such a inspiration to building the club as a feminine incubator, right? So I believe communities will shift into that. It will start looking at how do we get the best out of each person, and how can they contribute in a way that they feel valued and seen and heard. And passion, and they're tapping into passion, and they're tapping into what they actually want to do, right? So these are some of the ideas that I've had. Now I'm going to hand it over to Annie, and I really want you to think, as you're listening to this podcast, I really also want you to think, how are you going to use AI for your future, right? How are you going to use it to activate your feminine or masculine side or your ideas? What's your opinion on authenticity, right? The currency of authenticity in an AI age. And what's your prediction on the apocalypse? How are systems, communities going to change? How are you going to lead that change? How does your business, right? So many people that I see building businesses or healing, they're using old systems, old ways, right? They're still pushing. They're still very much in the masculine. They're still copying human design and Gene Keys as if it's a Bible, right? I'm like, I did not get rid of one religion as a child that later got called a cult, only to take on more religions, right? So what happens when we break all of these things and start saying, well, what do you want to do? How are you going to lead that change? How does your business position you and your skills and what you believe in and what you value and the new world that you want to build in post, air quotes, apocalypse? How are you actually building towards that, right? So I'm going to hand over to Annie a little bit here, because I also want to hear her take on some of this 2027 predictions, because this is actually really big in human design. And, it also kind of relates a little bit to her upcoming program, where she is actually interweaving two programs, where first she's going to look at the human design chart so you understand everything in your human design chart. And then she's going to scrunch up the piece of paper and throw it away and make you look underneath the chart. Who are you without your chart? And so I know she's definitely got some, as a 5-1 reflector, I know she's definitely got some great heretical theories about this big apocalypse that is coming and what she envisions this is going to be. So Annie, tell me, what is your contribution to this conversation?
Hello. Well, that was a lot. I was trying to make some notes there and we riff off. This is what
Ripper.
we do. We have to you have to sometimes riff off and just leaning into what you said about authenticity. It's none of this can be scripted. It has to come from the place of self. So I suppose let me go back. I suppose you're asking me to speak into the 2027 and my experience in that. I feel that we've been building on this for a long time, and there's a bit of scaremongering. The world always likes to kind of bring us into a lot of scaremongering to go, oh, on this date, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And so people go into a very panic sense of beingness. And I'm included in that as well. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, what's this mean for me? But I guess this is where my body of work kind of like I have the tools to be able to go, wait up a minute, just let's track this back. So the 2027, as you've mentioned as well, like there's a lot of and it hasn't just been through those things, it's an astrological event as well, and there's other prophets in society who have always kind of led to the world is shifting. But you know what? Can I say the world is always shifting? We are always shifting. It is an evolution of things. So the cross of planning was very much, as you pointed out, very much first line. And we've known that because we've needed it. And when we look at just using human design as a language here, when we look at any first line in our chart, or we look at, if we're a 1-3 or 1-4, or we've got a 5-1 like myself, there needs to be that level of depth, and there needs to be kind of like, let's go and build this structure, because without it, we can't sit on it. So I feel, the planning served its purpose, but we've been watching it break down for a lot longer than what people have been throwing this 2027 about. And just wanted to kind of share, I made a couple of notes here while you were speaking, because if we look through the last 40 years of how much we've evolved as a race. So you and I are similar age, Casey, and we've gone through the era of having nothing. Like, okay, some of us had black and white TVs. Some of us didn't even have TVs, right? So we've moved from that. Then it moved to color TVs. And oh my gosh, for a lot of people, getting a microwave oven, it was like revolutionary. So that was a big shift to go, oh my gosh, now I don't have to do as much. Now I can speed things up a little bit more. So we've been building and building. And then you look at when even CDs came out from cassette tapes. Things have always, like, this has been a real technologically advancing kind of era. The internet absolutely blew everyone's mind. And so if you speak to the elderly and how much they have had to kind of like go through their process, and even my era, we've had 3 to 4 different shifts through our life. Other people, my daughters and my children, for example, they don't know life any other way than what it is now. So the planning, the 2027, in a way, that my interpretation of this is the young people, they are about themselves. They're going to tell you because it's already in them. They have tools, they have equipment, whereas a lot of the older generation have kind of had to really adapt and evolve, which is, again, probably a really good example of where we're going with 2027. It's moving us from, oh my God, can you do this for the community, to, hey, what do you actually want to do for yourself? Because now you've got more tools to be able to do it. We're not relying on everyone. And we're watching, again, as you were speaking, we're watching communities, we're watching institutions start to crumble. We can't not see it, right? We're all wanting this authentic self-expression, and we're needing a little bit more smaller communities. And that's coming out in AI, because I believe, some people are still, myself included, for a while there, it was just like, I don't want to have any part of it. And then it was like, well, if I don't get on the bus, again, could you imagine being a person when the internet came out, and if you didn't get on and kind of go, well, what is this computer stuff? You're left behind. And there's a lot of them still, they don't know how to do it. They're still trying to go to a bank to try and deposit their money, and they can't, because it's like, oh no, you need to go out here and do it at an ATM. So you ride or die, I suppose. That's a bit hardcore, but it's true. It's how it's kind of like going, that we need to kind of like lean in a little bit However, and this is where my heretical stance will come in here, people, again, going back to just this last 40 years, we've kind of been building and building. And I don't believe February 2027, everything is going to shift and change and we need to go, oh my God, I need to be prepared. These are cycles that take a long time. And like anything, it's kind of like you can feel the waters start to churn underneath. And then you kind of like, oh my gosh. And then it kind of settles and then it churns again and it settles. And before you know it, it's going to become a way of life. But it's a real invitation for us to consider a different way of being. And you hear a lot more people going, what do I want? They're not thinking about, oh my gosh, my family says I have to do this or community says I have to do this. They're like, well, what do I want? You and I, we've had many conversations. Well, hang on a second. I want this and I desire it. I'm raising a manifesting generator, son with a fully defined will, who is the cross of the sleeping phoenix. Do you think I can tell him what to do? No.
Exactly.
That's my son. Yeah, he's only 9. And I'm like, even this morning, he's like, I don't want to do this. Who am I to tell him what he can and can't do? But as a parent, I've got to sometimes come in and go, okay, well, let's have a chat about that. You know, he's a manifesting generator. He doesn't want to talk until he wants to talk. But I watch him live out this expression, and it's confronting, can I say, for a little tribal reflector in a way. And he's very tribal as well, but it's very much like, I want what I want when I want it. Why can't I have it? And why can't I have it now?
Yeah.
I mean, kids are like that, but this is a different energy. So I feel like this transition is really going to shake us up, because a lot of it has, when we talk about that 2027, Ra always alluded to the fact that this was going to be a mutation of the solar plexus. And if I may take us back a little bit, you know, before we moved from being, you know, and we are now a 9-centered being, we were a 7. And when you look at how the centers evolved, the solar plexus, like if you've ever done a lot of, you know, chakra work, sitting here under the belly, it was just this one center, and it's split. In the human design system, it's split. So we were no longer kind of feeling that solar plexus, which is of the spleen of having to run for bears and fight for our, you know, have to be, oh my gosh, I have to be on all the time. We've slowly moved into being a little bit more emotionally aware, and that's why it's called the emotional solar plexus. We're starting to think and feel again. We're not out here chasing, you know, we're not hunting game and gathering as much from our tribal ancestors. We're here living, feeling, and experimenting in our life. Now, it's interesting because one of the gates that's in the 2027 is spirit. And you were speaking about the raves and autism and things like that. But Richard Rudd, who is the, you know, he's the one of the gene keys, I suppose. He was a student under Ra. He often spoke about that this was more about spirit. And I really love this, because this is about consciousness coming through freedom and spirit. And this is the 55th gene key. So when we think about that, it's kind of a nice and more nurturing place, because people go, oh, that means we're just going to have more autistic kids and these raves are coming in and apparently they're going to be like this. And it's just like, well, what would, you know, consciousness or actually like beingness be like through freedom and spirit? So, you know, when you're not constrained to ideology, or you're not constrained to this, or you're not constrained to that. So I know I'm going off on a tangent here, so please pull me in. But that kind of 2027 is very much like, we can get, again, another thing that I always like to share is we can get very caught into what others are interpreting for us, instead of actually watching the world around us and experiencing what's happening. We know systems are breaking down, but that's also a part of evolution, you know. Yes, there's more, you know, neurodivergency on the rise. Great. You know, we're evolving, you know, wonderful. That's how I look at it. AI, some people have alluded that the, in human design, the raves are associated with AI. So just, you know, bringing that in as well. I think that AI has a part for us in it's allowing us to be a bit more individual. And you were sharing this, is just through my take. it allows us to go, I've had all these thoughts, I've had all these dreams, I've had all these visions. Can you help me get it out of my head? And
Yeah.
again, we're talking about spirit, we're talking about embodiment. However, I think a lot of people are taking it too far. So here's my heretical stance on the AI thing, is because suddenly we're so overloaded with information that it's like we've forgotten how to actually live because we hear so much and we're like, oh my God, this is so much information. And I can imagine this must have been like what it was. Well, I knew when I got the internet back in, I think I had the internet and my computer in 1998. And I remember saying, how do I get on the internet? And my sister was like, well, you just use a browser. And I'm like, well, what's that?
Browser, yeah.
So, and it was like, well, what do I do now? And it was like, I literally take myself back to that sometimes. And I'm like, well, what do I do now? I'm on the internet. I've had the dial-up thing. What do I do? And she's like, well, you just search for stuff. And I'm like, why? It's just such a novel kind of way of looking at it, to go, this is first line energy. In a way, it's like, it has to be this way. We have to all be beginners. We didn't just learn to crawl, walk, or do anything. We all have to be beginners in life. But I am concerned about the AI in its overwhelming capacity, that it just keeps us on all the time. And I think to myself, heresy coming out here again, and this is just a mum aspect. My children, and I watch other children, they're not playing, they're not being tactile, they're very much in their heads, they're very much like outsourcing. A lot of people are, even in human design, they're just outsourcing everything, and they're just relying on what's been told and said to them. And it's like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, I know what to do with it for myself, but when I'm looking at the little people, as parents, we're trying to get them back outside, right? But we can't do that, because that's the point of going, we also have to include this in our life. How can we allow them to also experience life without getting up here? So what if, okay, the raves are a different thing, but what if the future of society just becomes this big, like, do you remember the old Martians where they had the big flipping head? Sorry, that swear then. Big head. I'm like, what if that's our future, where we just become big heads because there's no body left anymore? We're just a big brain.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like you've brought up some really important points here. Like, even like you say, if we think about how much has actually changed in the last 40 years, for the people 40 years ago, we're already in the apocalypse. So I like this, because sometimes I'm like, well, the apocalypse for whom, right? Because for me, I'm ready for these change of systems. But the people who are going to lose the most, it's going to be an apocalypse for them. Right? Like the people who don't want to shift with the systems, right? The people who don't want to change, right? So sometimes I'm like, yeah, maybe it's just like there might be many people who celebrate what's coming, right? Because they're going to move with the moment, move with the movement, right? They're going to be activating this, emotional individual self. They'll be happy to finally be that version of themselves, right? So sometimes I'm like, yeah, I don't see it as this big apocalypse. Like you said, right? Like so much has already changed. Has it been for the better? Has it been for the worse? And for whom, right? But the other thing as well that you bring up about children and the changes, how it's changed our lifestyle as well. I believe the AI brings this change and apocalypse much quicker versus if we didn't have it, right? Because it's moving us into this, high energy, dreaming and getting things done and being overwhelmed and having so much access to information and so much insight into self and awakening and who am I and what do I want to do, that it will trigger the reverse, right? So we then are going to shut down. And actually, Anna and I were talking a little bit before this call about how going on social media, I see 2-3 posts and I'm like, I'm done. I am overloaded. I just cannot take any more information in. So it's making me put down my phone. It's making me step away. It's making me not want to be a part of that and starting to go back to real connection. And this is why I say I believe authenticity is tied into this real connection. We are getting disconnected and detached from human connection. And so it's going to make us want to crave it even more. Like, in a way, I remember someone saying, I saw a post the other day. It's like, 3,000 friends on Facebook, 500 contacts in my phone, and I have no one to talk to tonight. I have no one to hang out with, right? So I feel that this will trigger a very different revolution. And it's funny because I'm a 4/6 reflector. And my line 4, right? Line 4 of the networkers, the community gatherers. I believe that we are going to go back into very niche communities. Now, AI is going to trigger this because now everyone gets to be right, right? This is the other thing. Everybody is right. You could be racist. And I don't know how AI deals with that, but it still would probably somehow validate your experience, right? So what does that mean? That there's going to be people with very different points of views getting validated in very different areas. Are they not going to start creating niche communities where they want to reconnect with people who believe what they believe? What happens when we activate individual thought and speech, and where everyone starts speaking more? Because actually Sleeping Phoenix connects gate 20 of the throat chakra, speaking in the moment, speaking in the now, with gate 34 of power, right? So it's almost like you can't even stop yourself from saying these things. So everyone's going to get into this really authentic self-expression. Like, I'm just going to say what I want and what I believe. And AI's been validating them for years. So what happens? We start creating niche communities. I, in a way, imagine that potentially borders will break down and everyone who believes in racism will just form their own community. Everyone who's
that's that whole 1% city stuff, or whatever it's called. That's what they're trying. I don't know about where you are, but that's what they're trying to do. That's what they're saying. We're going to turn back into, instead of having cities in states or whatever it is, we're going to have these little micro cities called, little hubs around. But people are already doing this now. Like, if we go out, you see it. You go out to supermarket. I'm in Australia, so there's still community notice boards, and you still see it going. Okay, I'm creating a circle, or I'm doing, and it's beautiful. But everyone's doing it now because everybody wants to. Oh my gosh, I've got this great idea, and ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you're using has validated you. I love what you were saying, and it's just like, I'm going to bring my community to me, but it's still not a true expression. But what happens when we move from when we move from a tribal aspect into individuality, is it doesn't just shift overnight. If anything, the tribal aspect becomes more needed, and it becomes more like, oh my God. And that's what we're experiencing, Casey. That's why people are trying to niche right now, or trying to do more community work, is because they're in their body, or in their whole beingness, they're already kind of preparing for it, of going, oh, we actually still do need community. And I think that's where people are getting a little bit going off on their high horses to go, oh, it's going to be an individual. No, we're still going to be a community, but it's going to maybe free up a little bit of space for you to also be an individual in that community. Like a healthy marriage is two individuals who are together instead of two halves of the one, which is what they used to teach in the old days. Hey, oh, you are two halves of the one. Fuck off. Oh, sorry. I am one whole in this. Sorry. Oh, I've done so well.
Exactly. And look, that's going to be one of those institutions that's going to break, right? The institution of marriage, the institution of gender roles, the institution of religion, right? This is what's breaking down. And yeah, you're right. We're going to, I agree. There's this gap, right? There's this internal panic of, well, I'm awakening my individual self, but who am I and where do I belong now, right? And there's this freak out.
Yeah. This is good chats. Hey, I'd love to hear what other people, feel into this. Just be, let's open up the discussion under it after, people get to listen, and what do you feel? What's happening for you? What have you read? Are you a little bit nervous? Are you a little bit or do you believe something else? Because everyone has the right to their own opinion and belief. Yeah.
That's also how I see the individuality coming out, right? It's that everybody has this right to choose what they want to follow. And that's what's being empowered right now. So yeah, that creates community in such a different way, because then we have to now respect, hear, and see everybody. And this is the thing about conflict communication, is that we're going to have to master conflict communication of individual and opposing thought, right? Because if tribal energy is gone and you can't just say, well, the Bible says so or society says so. I'm just like, okay, we're just going to erupt into arguments over who's right and whose individual thought is correct. And that's where I sometimes see like, well, the only solution is that you get all of them talking with each other. So they become the new AI, Delulu validator, like, oh yeah, you're so right.
That's gonna be so tricky to do because just using a human design lens here, I'll just give an example. I have 4 children, by the way, so I'll use 2 of them because they are still small children, and they're still unconditioned to a degree because they've been raised in a human design way. So one is in a way nearly a pure individual, and the other is very purely tribal. And watching those 2 argue it's like the tribal wants what he wants still because, but the individual is like, she doesn't know how to experience life other than through her own lens. And so the tribal aspect of the other half can be very much like, well, why is it always about you?
No,
And she can get into shame for that because she feels like, well, I don't know how to experience life any other way. So I think when we start to look at, what is individuality, we can think, oh, that means to be selfish. And I don't think that's correct at all. It's about taking the process and making it a little bit more internal. And when we have that, the lower profiles are a little bit more internal opposed to the upper trigram, which is very much interpersonal. So we can kind of relate to that a little bit. But I feel that that's important for us to meet people where they are in any given moment. And it takes a bit of, just you getting out of your own way and not getting activated. But it's also very much understanding that a lot of people are going to, and neurodivergents are really good at this because they can often be told that they're really, oh, you're selfish and why have you got to talk all the time? Because they have to experience it through their own body and being, and then they want to tell you all about it and they want to give you all of the information. And I think that's kind of where we're going in life, it needs to be a body process and it needs to come through us, and that's the authenticity, and then we're going to share about it. Yeah. So you just watch, whereas the tribals, and I'm not going to throw all tribals under the bus here, but we're very much sometimes sitting up here just waiting. We're just like, okay, when's my turn? We're not taking it in like they are. So we can learn a lot from individuality to just go, well, what exactly are you experiencing? Tell me about that. I don't know how to get there. Okay, let's explore that. Tell me about that. So yeah.
That's so interesting because like I'm an Aquarius and a line 6, right? So like for me, my activation came through by being selfish. And I'm like, no, I love that word. I love to be selfish because we activate our individual everything by saying, no, that's not for me. Yes, I believe this. And I get there's going to be this element of renegotiation afterwards, but I feel that first everyone has to get into their selfishness, right? Activate, understand exactly who they are, purely individual, and then we will reconnect on how we can work together. And a big part of this is removing all judgment, right? It's like you say with neurodivergence, like they block themselves so much because they feel judged by society, and they are judged by society. But then this creates internal judgment, right? So they are just so blocked from even being their authentic self, even loving their authentic self. And I say this from my own point of view as well. Like, how many times do I just feel frustrated about some of the behaviors that I do? But then as soon as I reframe that and say, why is that bad? Why do I have to label that as wrong? I did this post the other day, like, when's atypical going to be typical? Why do we use this language that you're atypical? I'm like, maybe I'm just a genius, right? But you're not giving me the space to say that I'm correct and let me be self-led to follow my genius in the way that activates my individuality. So that's what, in this last year or two, I have isolated and disconnected so much so I could do that. One, because I had to heal as well, CPTSD, which piles on top of neurodivergence, and or it's very much the same symptoms. I have a lot of beliefs around that as well. And so unraveling that has helped me to manage the other symptoms related to neurodivergence. But the isolation and just following, what do I want? When do I want it? What feels right to me, and removing all judgment. I'm a whole different person. I run my life in a whole different way. Look, I built this club in 3 months, right? Like, it's like, don't tell me I'm wrong. Don't judge me, right? Don't make me have to hide those parts of myself. So yeah, I'm like, so for me, it was being selfish, right? I stepped away from everyone. I was like, no, if I don't want to talk to you, I'm not going to talk to you, right? Like, just little things like this. I'm like, no, but I don't want to. I don't want to.
I think it's a really good, words, right? Words carry a lot of weight for us because of conditioning and things like that. And even reevaluating, well, what does the word selfish actually mean? So even that's a really good exercise for everybody to do. What does selfish actually mean for you? And what maybe instead of the word selfish, you could just do it could be another word. It could be, oh, what's an empowering thing that I can do for myself today? So we can get caught in the words selfish, and we can get caught in the words judgment, because as somebody who has judgment in their chart, I am going to judge. And it's like, I'm going to judge. And it's just my way of correcting things that aren't aligned to me. So I feel that, wordsmithing comes in here a lot with it, of just going, let's review those words sometimes, and let's just sit with them and just go, what does individualism mean to you? What does, I don't know, just, it's such a fun exercise. We don't have to take it all so seriously. We can just kind of like go, oh gosh, I didn't realize that I was thinking that selfish meant that I was going to let people down or whatever. Instead, selfishness could mean just, I'm just going to eat my own dinner tonight. Thank you, guys. I'll make my own.
Yeah.
Am I being selfish? No, because I've already provided for my family. If anything, I'm being overgiving, but I just want to do this one thing for me. So anyway, sorry. But yeah, it's interesting as we deepen into that.
It is. Yeah. It's very much like you say. Yeah. Like, if we change selfish for what do I want, or even what do I need?
What do I desire?
And it's even like you're always going to be judgmental, right? But when I remove judgment from your judgment, I can allow you to be judgmental without it affecting me. And you might be like, Casey, you shouldn't do that. And I'll be like, well, okay, but I'm not going to follow what you say because I don't believe it. And this is how I define individuality. I'm like, you can be judgmental of me. That's okay. But I still hold my own individual values and beliefs. I don't have to be influenced anymore by the tribe, right? Like, I get to, okay, you can be you. And as a reflector, like, this is something I think we master so well, because, I have had conversations with people that I completely disagree with, but I can still sit there and be like, oh, okay, then, yeah, if that's what you believe, like, I don't have to fight them because I'm quite comfortable in my individuality, right? Like, I'm like, I don't need to change anybody. And so it's funny, even knowing that you're more tribal, I'm more, individual, and how that can be expressed in so many different ways. Like,
what's frustrating? It's frustrating because, I have a partner, my husband he's another pure individual. And when we were first, I think I've shared this on the podcast so many times, when the first few years of our relationship, there was sometimes this kind of loggerheads, because I'd think to myself, using the word selfish, why are you so flippin' selfish? And it wasn't something that I'd say to him as an attack, but I think, why? And over the years, I kind of like learned to go, I actually really value that in him, because he looks after himself. And if anything, I don't, because I'm too busy. Mind you, that's another aspect of my chart and who I am. But I admire him. And I'll say to him sometimes, you know, when we were first together, I used to think that you're really selfish. Now I just really admire you. And I've learned from him to go, my needs, I value my needs too. And if anything, anytime I want to do something, he'll just like, absolutely go do it, you know. Whereas if he was probably a little bit more tribal, he'd be like, well, what about me? So
That is so, I think you just healed half of my relationship trauma wounds, because I'm the one people call selfish. And I'm like, but I don't want to. You can go. You go do the thing.
yeah.
I'm fine with it. So it's
Yeah.
funny, like how
It's very interesting when you've got a partner who is very individual, because they, you know, you get invited as a family to something and they'll just say, I don't want to go. And you think to yourself, but we should. And then you remember and you're like, if he doesn't want to go, that's got whatever. I'm not going to make you.
yeah, exactly.
And it is tricky, but it's also like that's the gift of, I guess, knowing and respecting humans and respecting relationship and respecting friendships, of just going, I can't change you. I don't want to change you. I love you just the way you are. I got to meet myself in these changes, you know, of going, oh, there's Annie's conditioning of going, but you have to look like you're no, I just rock up to stuff on my own all the time.
yeah.
I'm not going to put him through that.
This is so interesting, because like even just this small shift can create a big apocalypse in so many ways, right? Like you said, it's what we define as selfish. But if we actually all start acting individually and then having to work out how we're going to respect each other's individual choice and action, right? I'm just like, yeah, it's that's what's going to be difficult. That's going to feel like it's an internal, maybe it's going to be an internal apocalypse, not an external one.
Well, in 2019, I've been raising kids for 31 years.
Wow.
And it's been a long, you know, it's a long slog. If you're a parent, you know, it can be like even having fur, you know, having dogs and cats. It's a commitment, right? And in 2019, I decided that every year I would just go away and do things. And sometimes it was only 3 days, sometimes it was 4. And that was a huge thing for me. For a lot of people who travel the world, when you've been raising kids as long as I have, and especially a teenage mum, that's a big thing. But over the last couple of years, I've kind of been extending that. Like now, I think I went to Peru for nearly 3 weeks. The guilt, the absolute guilt to do something that I truly wanted to do for myself and to leave my family for that long was full on. Like it nearly destabilized me. I nearly didn't go, but yeah, I had to, because, you know, you start to lean in. So, yeah, it's a difference in just kind of honoring your own process and asking, what do I need? What do I want?
Yeah. And this is the thing, right? Where, like you said, the children who were born 10, 20 years ago, they are already this way, right? They're teaching us so much about how they're just like, I'm not doing that. And we see how they go to try a job, they quit 2 weeks later, they're like, no, I don't like that. You know, and it's like learning to tap into this, you know, getting rid of the guilt and just being like, no, what do I want to do, right? How do I want to be my individual self? And even, you know, coming back even to human design, for example, right? In a way, we think about how much we use all these systems, right? Like they still kind of create this permission that we have to follow something, we have to be someone, we have to live up to these standards. But what happens if you take away your chart, right? What happens if you don't know your chart, right? How do you act? What decisions do you make? What do you choose in your life, right? How do we start living? And with the breakdown as well of social norms and social concepts, right? Social constructs. What if we remove all of these things, all of these identifiers, all of these things that have actually defined us, right? It's like this existential crisis potentially that's going to come, right? Who are you without any of these things? And you were talking
people love identity.
Right? They love a label.
They love it. Yeah.
They do. And so, another prediction that I have is like, what happens if even human design predictions don't come true? Right? My sister just sent me a video this morning that the love languages has been proven a scam, and Enneagram as well. Right? That the love languages, after doing research, did not prove to improve relationships, and that actually it was mostly constructed by a man who wanted to get his wife to do more chores around the house by telling her that she just had acts of service and his was acts of touch, right? And so there's all this like breakdown story right now of even these systems are starting to break down of how people identified and how people said, no, that's my love language, that's my human design, that's my Enneagram, that's my this and that. So like, what's your kind of view on that, right, in the light of 2027 or the apocalypse of identity?
I think that anything that gives you a chance to see yourself is worthy. And even when it becomes something that they've, just gone, no, this is not true, this is not valid. And as a psychotherapist, I know that this has been happening for years. Like so many things that we're taught in psychology and psychiatry, that's not true anymore. Science is the same. We're always evolving. But any tool, Enneagram included, even the lung languages, I've used all of those. That's been very helpful. And it's served me at any point in my time. So I think that it's another one of those, like building on the foundation of anything to just go, oh, that was actually really good. I'm an acts of service person. I actually know that. It's just like if someone comes in and they just clean up the kitchen or do the dishes, I'm like, oh, I feel so loved and seen. I'm not an acts of value, like words and stuff. Like I just know that there's a part of that that's very true to my nature, but it could be many other things in my nature. So human design, I love this because I actually really encourage people to let go of the label because they get so caught in it. They get so caught in this, oh, well, I'm a reflector, or even I'm a reflector generally goes up high of going, oh, so special. And then you talk to someone and you ask them, what's your time? That, oh, I'm just a generator. And you just literally, you watch them fall through the floor like there's something wrong. And I'm like, okay, but what can you take away from that besides a label? So I think anything. I've never been able to do. I actually did my Enneagram again the other day because I studied Enneagram back in my early 20s very religiously. And I was curious because I didn't identify with it anymore. And I think that's the thing. We're always evolving and changing. And even bloody Myers-Briggs, like that's I think I've always been an IN, but it's always changed between feeling and thinking. I think I used to be a thinker and now I'm a feeler. So, which makes sense as I've kind of stopped having to do a lot of the independent stuff that I had to do to fight through uni and fight through corporate. And, now I can kind of feel. So, yeah, I think that society is always going to have something that comes out and says, oh, this is what it is now. I mean, like, look around you. There's always someone doing some quiz telling you who you are. But if that telling you who you are gives you a little bit of an illumination into yourself to just go, you're going to pause for a moment and go, oh, I feel really seen. I think that's a good thing. It's how long you hold on to it though. How long you hold keep the cloak on and you just like, this is me now. Before you know it, you're under like, you're in Russia. You're in one of those big mink things that you're like, oh, I'm so heavy.
Exactly right. Yeah, it becomes another masculine structure that stops us shifting into a new state of being, right? Yeah. Or, like lately I've been doing this exercise for myself. Maybe some people, you could do it here. And I did it the other day on my social media. I said, describe yourself without using your human design. Right? Describe yourself without using any system. And even to myself, sometimes during the day, I'm like, oh, there I go again because I'm neurodivergent, or there I go again because I'm an Aquarius. And I sit there and I say, why can't I just say, oh, I'm like this? Why can't I just say I'm like this and accept that as who I am? Right? Like, why do I have to put it to a system? And like we were kind of talking a little bit before this call, like then what happens when you go into like Vedic astrology and the whole house astrology and and sidereal human design, like then I also got to a point where you're right, it activated me in so many ways. It gave me permission to be myself, which is what I see AI doing now faster than anything. Right now AI is becoming our new system. It's becoming our therapist, our business coach, our partner. For a lot of people, it's even replacing their relationships, right? It's everything in once. It's validating everything we ever wanted, much like we used all the systems. So AI is just replacing permission. But what happens when we give permission to ourselves, when we remove all of these things, right? And so, yeah, I got awakened by so many things. I got awakened by, AI has helped me. All these systems have helped me. And I just got to a point where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm enough. I'm getting lost in the systems, right? They're just becoming like the religion that I grew up with that later got named a cult, right? That stayed in my system for years, like guilt over religious things stayed in my system for years. It changed my behavior for years, right? So these systems can start to change our behavior. AI starts to change our behavior. Now we're all starting to write like AI, right? So it's like,
it's so beautiful, isn't it?
right? That's what makes us all turn off. And so that's why I'm like, well, okay, what happens when we ditch it all?
It's such a shame because a lot of us we actually had really good grammar education. And so a lot of us actually naturally do write well. But because we write well or we think about it and because we're pausing in that, we're, oh, that's AI. Everything's AI now.
Yeah.
Everything's AI. I can't believe anything I see on the internet anymore. I got emotionally invested in something a couple of weeks ago and I was getting really upset because I was like, oh my gosh, and it really, really activated my emotional system. And then I found out it was fake. And I felt so betrayed.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, the swears came out and I'm like, no, that was an activating moment for me because it allowed, and you think about what's happening to the system. That was an extreme case for me, but what's happening to your system every single day when you're comparing yourself against others and when you're out there trying to hustle and this, it mightn't be tears like I had of going, oh my God, this whole thing, and then going, this is not real. And I had this whole process around it. I mean, movies and TV do the same, but
it's labeled. Yeah, you know going in that it's a story. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
really it's so interesting. There's a thing about AI, and I know I'm going to have to wrap it up soon, but this the last couple of months, if I may share in my therapy practice, I've had a lot of people come to me, with a lot of overwhelm. This is even outside of human design stuff. This is overwhelm. And it's really become a thing where when we're using these tools or whatever you're using for your, a ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it is, it never wants you to stop.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It wants you to keep going. And so, I'm having these conversations with these people and we're talking about something and they'll say that, oh, well, ChatGPT said this or ChatGPT said that or Claude, whatever they're using. And again, it comes into all I see in my mind is just going, how much of ourselves are we outsourcing to something else? Not just a AI bot, but it could be somebody else. And we're learning not to trust ourselves because it has all the answers, right?
Yeah.
No, it tells you what you want. And the overwhelm comes because it's continually going, now, would you like me to do that for you? Now, would you like me to do this? I can create a spreadsheet for that. I can do this. And you're like, yes, yes. And so you're on all the time without taking any pause. So we're allowing young minds into this. Imagine the adult mind, young minds into this. What is it doing to them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, that's on my soapbox. I'm going to put my microphone down now.
I love that. I love that. And, bringing that to to wrap this up, like, yeah, you're right. Like we think AI is awakening us and in a way it is awakening parts of ourselves, but you're right. It's just outsourcing permission once again that stops us from tapping into internal cues and internal empowerment and internal belief. And I've had the same, right? I'm a writer. I have years, like 15, 20 years of experience. And I'll sometimes put something into AI being like, okay, I'll just, like, I write it first from what I know and I put it in and it rewrites everything. And it does. It makes me want to cry because I'm like, am I such a terrible writer? And I've written into AI, like, really, I'm like, am I so bad that you rewrite every single word every single time? Like, I fight with my AI because I'm like, stop it. You're taking out my words. And so I kind of stopped using it for that and more just for like, like organizational things or to have the guide or to direct me. And then I try to bring back in that authentic voice because you're right. It's just, to me, it's like this other masculine system. Is it just a masculine, like, distraction, like human, like all of the systems, like don't tap into the feminine. Let's keep the feminine blocked, right? Don't think for yourself. So it's interesting. It's kind of this everything is a catch-22, right? Like human design awakens us and then it becomes a trap. AI awakens us and then we give all our permission to AI. So like when are humans going to like take back that power for themselves? And I think that's how this apocalypse is going to happen, right? Is when we become the it's like we're worried about AI becoming self-directive. Maybe the humans are going to become self-directive for change. That's the apocalypse.
I was watching Planet of the Apes again the other day. But anyway, that's another story. I always imagine, ever since I was a little girl, I don't know, there's always this thing that I do. And I know that there's an emoji about that of what to do. But this is a part of the scales. And with anything in life, we can't just be perfectly balanced all the time. There's always this, it's got to tip this way and it's got to tip that way. And I think with anything that we do, that and what we're going through and AI and everything, it's like sometimes it's going to go down here and then it's going to go this way. And we're having that with the rise of feminism. We've been experiencing that as well, of going, oh God, now we're going down this way. And then all of a sudden it kind of like meets, and maybe it doesn't, because maybe there's a rock that falls out and it kind of has a little topple again. But I've always kind of thought about life to just through the scales. What is it? Is it Libra that has the scales? Yeah. Anyway, just had to share that because it's just like that just kept coming through again of going, here's the scales of going, it's rarely ever perfectly balanced because without anything, we can't actually have momentum and movement in life. So it has to kind of like create momentum to create force, to create something.
And this is why I always say, like, the structures that are going to survive are the flexible structures. They have rigidity that can constantly change and move. And I use the analogy of an earthquake building. I used to live in Mexico City, right? Buildings in earthquake zones are designed to move with the earth so they don't crack. But they're still rigid structures, but they move, right? So this is how I see the systems changing. Rigid structures will fall, but you're right. We have to now balance the masculine and the feminine. We move, we set down structures. We set down an anchor, but then we move again. It's kind of going back to nomadic tribes probably in a way, but it's balance now. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. And this is why I say the future is feminine led, because the future is the master of change and fluidity, and then the masculine build. So I think to me as well, the major change is that we will switch into feminine led initiatives, that we go feminine first. We say, what do we want? What do we need? What makes us feel good? And then we set down the masculine structure. And as soon as that shifts, we have to shift the structure. So that is definitely my prediction. So yeah, we are solving some of the world's problems. Now, if you are listening, we would love to hear your opinion on how you're using AI, what you think about the impact of AI on society or on yourself, how you value authenticity in the age of an AI era, and what do you predict is going to happen in the apocalypse? And Annie also set out some really good questions as well, right, throughout the thing. So if you've heard those questions, also feel free to comment on them. What does selfishness mean to you? What does, identity and self mean in the individual age? So we really look forward to hearing everything. We hope you enjoyed this podcast with us. And if, and in a way, all these things that I see is how I'm also trying to build the club, right? How do we create a space where everybody can have conversations, but be seen and heard and respected for what knowledge they bring, what point of view they bring in? We don't fight here. We hold space for everybody. and we learn from each other. We let everybody say, hey, this is what I want to contribute to the group. This is what I want to teach. This is what I want to mentor. This is what I believe in. This is what I want to say. And we're trying to create a space for everybody. We create this synergy society where everybody gets to be a part of it. Everybody wins something or gets something in return for being a part of it. So I hope as well that the club becomes a model to move into this feminine era and to, become one of these new ways that we have to build systems in a way. So thank you for being a part of this, and we can't wait to hear all of your responses. So we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.